Hello, everyone. How's it going? Hello, channel. So thanks for spending some time with us today. We hope you guys enjoy what we're going to throw at you. We're looking to do this, pretty frequently every week, hopefully, and see how things go. My name's Shaun. This is
Donny.
And so we're part of a group. We call ourselves the Dram Society. And essentially what we do is we just share our love of whiskey with each other. We're able to talk about it, and we, together as a group, we've had the ability to, get some, I don't want to say higher end whiskeys, but some different whiskeys that I may not purchase alone. But as you can see, some of our collections have grown exponentially over the last year or so. So we started this back in 2019. It was late 2019. It was just a couple friends of ours, really just me and my brother and a buddy of mine starting this, and it has evolved from that into a much larger group. We've tripled numbers, I think, since then. And really all we're doing is enjoying whiskey with each other, having a good conversation. And we want to share with everyone else is our reviews, our take, our look on just the culture of whiskey in general. We're talking bourbon, Irish whiskey, Scotch. And we all have different preferences. We all have different likes. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, it's been a great camaraderie. Like it's kind of really got close to everybody that even people I've just met for the first time, I feel like I've known them for a long time. So great group. I've been introduced to a lot of different whiskeys. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this turns into. But
it's gonna be fun.
It's great. So we kind of thought we'd actually start with, since this is our introduction, and introducing ourselves to what got us into whiskey. So I have for myself that got me into, considering I wasn't even an alcohol drinker 6 months ago, just kind of got into it. But the Balvenie 14 Caribbean Cask is something that I purchased a couple years back. Didn't know anything about it. Just put it in my collection as far as a bar for everyone to come and join. And did not realize what I had until I got into it recently. So we kind of dig into this a little bit.
I like it. Yeah, the Balvenie, I just had this pour Wednesday, I think, for the first time, and which is crazy because I love Balvenie. It's slowly creeping up there in my top.
It's definitely one of my tops at this point.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, the interesting thing with this Balvenie is it is the first one that kind of, I don't want to say tolerable, but it's the one that first it wasn't off-putting to me. Is that I didn't really drink spirits or anything along those lines, and with this one, there was just something not quite off-putting about it. It had, one of the things I really like actually about it now is I haven't had this in 6 months or so. So I'm kind of revisiting this for the first time, and I know this is the first one that I was like, hey, you know what? I can actually start liking this stuff. It's really light on the nose. It's got, maybe citrusy, honey.
Yeah.
Even a little floral note to it.
I get like a mild banana to this too, and it reminds me of like a Glenfiddich just in general.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's just because those rum casks. I'm assuming it's the Caribbean rum casks. It just has that sweetness to it, and it's not as pronounced as like any of the Glenlivet line at all. But it just kind of has that. Yeah, it's there in the background.
It's really light. It's not simple, but it's not overly complex. So to a novice drinker, it's not gonna say, you're not gonna be hot on the nose. You're not gonna get, overly charred. Anything that may kind of put you off to, enjoying the flavors. Because a lot of times when you're not into whiskey or anything, you look at it as a mixer, or you're trying to shoot it, and you're not really appreciating what it is.
I completely agree, and I'm on the same page there. This is, I think, to be honest with you, for the price too, it's a little bit up there in, for a starter whiskey for someone, especially if you want to get them into whiskey, or I want to say whiskey Scotch, because there's a huge difference between the two, in my opinion. At least when you try to want to get someone into it. This is a good starter though. Again, price is going to be subjective to whoever, the person. But as far as flavor, it's light enough, and the nose is light enough. There's not, it's not super heavy. So on a palate, and I can just tell you from the nose in this that the palate's going to be really light too.
Yeah.
Right.
I just like the sweetness. I like the honey.
And I find that sherry casks or like rum casks or anything that's going to have something that's very sugary before it goes in, besides like an American oak or a bourbon cask, is going to have that sweetness. You're going to have some sweetness from it because the residual from the previous fill. And for me, selling whiskey like that to people who aren't whiskey drinkers, or at least to get them in, that's the way to go. I mean, it's much easier to sell that than to be like, hey, let me pour you, an Ardbeg and give you a really heavily peated whiskey, right? Let's try this, which I love peated whiskeys, but it's definitely an acquired taste for a novice drinker.
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
cheers, my friend. Sir. Yeah, this has got a great nose to it. It's so light. And like I said, it's a light mouthfeel. There's really no burn. So it's not very syrupy. It's not heavy in the mouth. So I will say, for me, one of my takeaways with whiskey when I start to say, list my favorites from 1 to 10, which is almost impossible to do these days. For me though, I love a really deep mouthfeel. I want something to sit there and linger. This one's kind of mid-range. It's there. Like I'm still tasting it. I'm still chewing it a little bit. So I know that there's some sweetness, like in the back of my palate. But it's not, just not coating my entire mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is, again, a good selling point, I think, for someone getting into whiskey.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm liking, Shaun, what you're saying right now is just I'm getting slightly different, and which is what I love about whiskey, because it's all subjective. I am getting more on the oily side. It's not syrupy by any means, but it has a heavier mouthfeel to it. And while it doesn't have a long finish, it's the texture itself will sit on your tongue, but the flavors don't linger on for too long. So if you're new to whiskey and you don't want those flavors to kind of hang out too long, you don't know which flavors you like, or you're trying to identify them, it's not gonna put you away from it, be off-putting.
No, not at all.
You're gonna be kind of ready to go back into that next drink. It's not gonna be like, okay, I'm good. I've had my drink. This is when you have a drink. Like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah,
it's got this.
You got to try it again.
Yeah,
I got to go in again. Yeah.
Yep. And then of course, for me, it's like this the first one of the day, so you get a little bit of the palate shock. So the second one is really where you start picking out all the flavors.
This is the first of the day, and it's a little early for us over here in California, but it's okay.
Yeah, even a little. It finishes for how the oily texture I get. It finishes a tad dry. It's not bad, but.
No. Whether we try to be objective with our whiskey tastings, but it is just everyone's own personal preference, right? And this is in regards to nose, taste, its finish, and we rank these things like most reviewers for whiskey. This very similar. We give it a point scale, and the reason we do that just so we can kind of get an idea where we gauge our flavor profiles, and it has helped immensely for our group internally just to see where we rank things, because we've been able to push specific brands or specific types or specific finishes to people based on their likes from what we like as well, which is kind of nice. Now, this one though, I wouldn't go crazy again on the finish. It's not really long. It's pretty. I'm going to say it's mellow. It's in that 3 range. We'd say to rank it 1 to 5. And I'm not going to do our rankings here. We will post rankings on the screen. So for this specific one, so for the Balvenie 14 Caribbean, you'll see it somewhere at the bottom.
Maybe we put it here.
We'll put them up.
We'll find out. This is the first one. We're gonna get this dialed in.
And again, guys, this is just us talking about it. So really, I think everyone's going to have a different experience with whiskey, and especially when you get into these nuances of flavor and what I'm picking out of it, and so on and so forth. Don't feel left out if you can't pick vanilla right off the bat, or you can't pick some of those basic flavor profiles, and we're still novices at this too. I'm not an expert at this. We've been doing this hard for about a year, pretty consistently. But people have been doing this for years and years and years in their whole life in whiskey. I wish I would have started it earlier in life. Unfortunately, it was more like a grown custom. This is why our group has done so well internally, is because it's kind of given us a commonality, and we were able to feed off of that, I think, collectively.
100%.
Are you getting anything else on this? So I'm telling you, I still get a really light banana. It's there.
It's funny you say the banana side of it too, just because of, I'm an old Forester fan, but it does have some bourbon characteristics, because I am getting a light vanilla.
Sure.
So that's kind of there. And then one of the things I love about bourbon is brown sugar. It's just really faint brown sugar note that I'm...
It's not heavy. If you poured me this, I definitely wouldn't go, blind. I would know this is not a bourbon. I mean, this is a Scotch for sure. It has that characteristic. There's an oakiness to it that kind of just gives it that.
Just like you can tell it's aged, right?
It's aged, right?
You can taste this and say, okay, it's going to be older than 10
And
years
it's
old.
funny because you really look at, like, you talk about color too. So it's hard to gauge with color because we know, some distilleries do put natural coloring in their whiskeys, and you got to look on it to say if it's natural color. You got to find out which one specifically. But if you just looked at this one specifically, we'll hold it up to the screen so you can kind of see. We'll give like a, it's not really dark for a 14.
And I don't believe they use artificial color.
No, Balvenie's pretty good with that. And I don't care. I'm not knocking the artificial coloring.
As long as you disclose it.
Yeah, just say it. Just let us know.
Transparency is important. So,
In this world, for sure, because there's so many expressions out there that people can try. I mean, I think I have the entire, base Balvenie line right now. And we posted this on our Instagram. And every one of them is different, for me. And this is a great example. This one doesn't fit in their normal character profile, but it's just got a great feel to it. It's got a great nose. I actually like the nose, I think, a little better than I do on the palate here. Just because I feel like I'm getting a little bit more off the nose.
I like, actually, I'm getting a toffee on it now too.
Maybe a little toffee. That's
so
pretty
on
good.
The nose, it's not complex on the nose or the palate, but it's got a few layers to it, which actually is still appealing. Still, the novice will enjoy it. I think the expert, the long-term whiskey drinker, they're also going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. This is 100% Donnie. 100% agree. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why this is one that really kind of caught my attention in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And kind of just to repeat what I mentioned earlier, I was like, I did not drink really any alcohol at all. I mean, maybe a beer on occasion with my dad or with my buddies, but didn't do much. Got this more because I like to entertain and wanted to have some things that I thought my guests might like. And I just bought this blindly. I wanted a whiskey, and I was one of those guys that looked at the age statement. Honestly, I looked at the age statement and I was like, 14 years, this has to be
so many
good, right?
people do.
So I know I'm guilty of it, which is actually nice because I went in there with doing the same mistakes a lot of people do, and that's going to be one of the benefits of us doing this channel, is that we're going to be able to share some of the things that we've overcome and what to look out for. We're hoping that as we get farther advanced with our episodes, you'll be able to see where my flavor profile is, and if you like what I'm tasting or what I'm gathering, then you kind of know what to lean towards. And if you like what Shaun is tasting, then you can kind of just say, okay, I see what he's interested in. I'm going to kind of go down that path because there's so many different varieties. We're not specific to a Scotch or Irish whiskey or bourbon. We have our preferences, but it's really nice that this group has actually opened us up to so much more, because each individual contributor will be able to select, if we're looking at a distillery or certain expressions or a region, for example. One of the first ones that I was involved with, because I've only been doing this for 6 months or so. You wouldn't know that by my whiskey collection, because we are definitely bourbon and whiskey enthusiasts.
Yeah. Maybe a little off the deep end up front, but that's okay. It's in a good way, because for me, and I'm sure Donnie's the same way. I really think that whiskey brings not just the fact that you're drinking alcohol, or you're, I hope you don't go into this with the idea of, I just want to get drunk, because there's plenty of other things that can get you. Have some vodka, have a gin and tonic, have some, which I love gin and tonics, but needless to say.
Like I said, no shame in cocktails, no shame in
no,
that stuff.
not at all, and I love cocktails. Again, the thing is, though, I think there's an experience that goes along with whiskey, especially when you do a tasting, because the idea is you talk about it, you get involved in it, and what we advocate for sure, most heavily is people talk about what you're doing, what you're drinking. Like, have a discussion. It doesn't have to be super in depth, or in detail. Sometimes we go. I mean, we've had times where we've had a dram and we've talked an hour on one whiskey. I remember vividly us talking about the Edredor, and I'm like, they're 13 Edredor, and it's cask strength, and it was just all we talked about was this whiskey for an hour, and sometimes we won't, it just depends.
We had the perfect day for it. We were outside by the pool, the sun was coming down.
Can't go wrong.
It was a great day, great whiskey, and I mean the color on that thing. I don't want to get sidetracked. The color on that thing was incredible.
We could, and it'll be bad. We're gonna go right back to that same thing. But listen, this is I'm a big fan of this Balvenie, but so take a look at it, and we could be totally wrong. because again, you may pull something totally different out of it.
But share what you're tasting and smelling and stuff like that.
Post on our Instagram, send us messages, go on our Facebook, talk to us. We want to hear from people too, because I think it helps when you have a community of people who kind of are like-minded and want to discuss these things. There's a benefit there, because then we can talk and get into deeper conversation about how this whiskey's made, or what the sat in. It's nice to hear the history. It's nice to see the bottle and taste the bottle, but it's also nice to know a little bit more about the whiskey. And we try to do our best, but this for us, this is a hobby. This is just something that we're having fun with.
We are definitely enthusiasts. We enjoy it. And even during our tastings, it's fun. This is why I'm really curious to hear what the viewers think as well. I know I've taken a couple occasions where we've had our meetings and tried to find the most off-putting note that I could possibly find, just to see if I could throw off the rest of the group.
Dirty wash rag. Or no, wet wash rag. Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, wet dish towel.
It was a Scotch Brite sponge.
Scotch Brite sponge, yeah.
Yep. And we talked about it for at least a half hour because it could not leave anyone's palate.
So listen, I don't
remember the whiskey, but it was.
I don't remember
really
it either. I think actually I do. I'm not gonna.
I won't name it
yet. But the sad thing is, I really liked that pour.
I still enjoyed it.
It was really good.
I still enjoyed it.
It was the sour that we pulled off of it, and so the reason I think we got that was like you're getting this. It's not that rye, but it's because there's not any rye in there, but it's the mash, just the barley. So we're tasting that sourness from the barley. That's what I got from it.
100%.
And I think that's where that came from.
Yeah, and it's like if you get a heavily weeded, you get that mossy type, taste, which is kind of like a wet. It just
I know exactly. It's almost like I saw this review, and they were talking about flavor profiles, and it was like decay is one of the like the flavor. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I don't think I've gotten that. Yeah. I don't know if my palate is as advanced to pull out the decay. Yeah. So this tastes like
I haven't tried decay yet.
Yeah, this is a rotting animal. I'll have to show you it later. You'll die.
Yeah, I remember the first time we used a descriptive term of like earth or dirt.
Yeah, dirt.
It seems
nutty or something like that. Earthy.
Yeah, it just seems like something that's not complimentary, and it is.
But it is.
It's just what it is it's describing a layer.
Yep.
As you kind of go through section by section, if you can identify 3 or 4 notes, it's like, wow, this is actually more complex than I thought. And that's what most of the time when we say complex, that's what we're referring to.
Yes.
How many layers, how many different notes can we get on the nose and the palate? If the finish can have, if it's a longer finish, of course that's important. If it's got like this one, it's just got a nice rye spice to it, or a rum spice to it. It doesn't, even though it's finished in rum casks, it doesn't have a rum feel to it.
No.
But it has just a little bit of a rum spice, and it's not bad because it's I know we don't like the term, but it's not got a smooth finish to it. But that rum spice adds a little bit to the finish, which would, I'd say, just increase to its complexity.
My introduction to whiskey for our what we call our intro for this take or this theme was a Glenfiddich 18. So this is the small batch 18. It's batch number 8579. Sometimes it's hard to read because it looks like someone wrote it on there. Yeah. Most likely it was, so I'll throw it on there. Right. So now this was not my introduction to whiskey that kind of sold me into the world of whiskey, but this was a purchase that we did as DBS, so our group, collectively. And again, our whole goal when we first started this was to pool together, be able to buy, to purchase some bottles that we may not purchase on our own. Mm-hmm. At the time when we first started, we were like, I want to spend $140 or whatever it was at the time. Yeah. Nah, we'll share it, and we split it. And so this was one of our tastings, and we didn't do. I want to say this may have even been a blind tasting. We're trying to pick our favorites, and we started that early because the idea was, well, if we don't know what we're drinking, what do you like? Well, out of these 4 or these 5 whiskeys, what did I find more interesting than the other ones? And so this was part of that grouping. And this ended up being my favorite of the 4. And maybe we'll post it somewhere on here. What those 4 were, because I've got all that stuff recorded. But I'm gonna go ahead and pour this. I love that sound. Yeah. It's like, actually, pour yours first, friend. Always. There we go.
I'm not even sure I've had this one yet, so
if
I have, it's been a while.
So a lot of the times we've been using acronyms, or we've been using nicknames for stuff. So I think we're going on the Fiddy or the Fiddick. One of the
Glenfiddich 18.
Glenfiddich 18. I like that. So what I like about this specific one is, obviously it's finished in a sherry cask, and that's all I'm gonna say. It's Oloroso sherry, and it's you can't go wrong for me. For a sherry cask whiskey, in fact, it's probably my one of my favorite flavor profiles that you get out of a Scotch whiskey. just because I kind of like the fruitiness you get it from the dried fruit. That's that dark rich flavor that you pull off a sherry cask, and that's just for me. That's kind of where my wheelhouse is. But what I thought it was interesting with this one is, again, we're talking about. We had no clue what we were doing when we bought this. We were like, well, let's try it. It's an 18-year. It was, it was a little bit more expensive than stuff we had purchased in the past. And so let's go ahead and try this. And this was a random pick, and for all the other ones, and this is a staple. I keep a bottle or two on stock.
There's only 3 members at the time, right?
I think there was 3 of us. Yeah. So it was just 3 of us. So it ended up being, I want to say we all picked this as one of our favorites. I don't know if we picked it because we were also trying to guess like what was the most costly one. I don't think we all picked it as that, but it was in there like as one of our favorites. So
makes sense. Glenfiddich, amazing.
Well, Glenfiddich has got a great product line. In my opinion, I think they have a really the characteristic they get in most of their whiskeys is very similar.
Yeah.
And just like any of the Glens, when I say in the Scotch world, you get this like. This note of, and for this one I get like cereal. I get a little spice. Now you don't find this in all Glenfiddichs. This is what's funny.
Yeah.
Now on their normal maturation line, they tend to be there's tend to be characteristics that match. For your 12 may be very similar to your 14, or the 15 Solera is a little bit different because the Solera casks are going to offer a little bit more. Variety in flavor because they're never emptied. They just keep filling them with more whiskey. Yeah. So you tend to get a little bit older,
Yeah.
Not
as much flavors pulled out of the
yeah, and it's still good. Again, you're like I almost and I want to say this when we go into this is don't knock a wiki. Sorry. Wiki. Don't knock a whiskey ever. I mean, there's just no reason to do it. Everything has got its purpose, its place. It's moment in time.
Yeah.
Down from like the most simplest bottle all the way up to your top. You want to spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a bottle of whiskey. Go ahead and do it. Enjoy it. With friends. I'd like to be able to try it and see how that goes. But cost isn't the end all be all, and it should never be. It's just your flavor profile. What do you end up liking?
We are anti-drink pour. Don't ever waste a whiskey.
No.
You can find it neat, straight. Try it different ways.
100%.
Some of the ones that I haven't been a fan of that I'd put a couple drops of water in there, try it neat, put ice in it. Of course you could put a splash of anything you want to add to it. A lot of times, cola is kind of the go-to, whether you like Coke, Dr. Pepper, cherry, whatever. There's always ways to enjoy it. So,
yes.
And even if you don't like it, as you kind of expand into things that you do like when you have guests and you get them into it, and you're kind of bouncing ideas and taste profiles off them, they may enjoy it as well. I know even I'm not a huge peated smoky fan, but I have a couple of bottles in there, so if anyone comes by, I know it's something.
But you can enjoy it though. I think that's the difference. Just because you may not be a peated whiskey guy, you still what you're tasting is unique enough to give a characteristic that you may be interested in at a certain time. You may go, and I'm the same way. Like peated Scotch is not my favorite, but there are times where I'm like, what, I really want something smoky.
Yeah.
I want that flavor profile today. And so for this one specifically, because we get back to the 5018.
Yeah.
It's finished in sherry casks, Oloroso sherry, but it's matured in a bourbon cask. So I want to say it's 3 years, 2 to 3 years finished in a sherry, and the rest of it's matured in bourbon, which is again similar to most Scotch whiskeys. So you do get light vanilla. It's light there. It's definitely not coming through as brown sugar.
No,
for me,
I get more dark fruits.
I get a little spice on the nose almost,
and it's not oaky, but you get a little woody.
Yeah, there's a woody. Well, listen, it's sitting in a cask for 18 years. An 18-year whiskey, it's gonna pull some wood, into the flavor profile. And it's for me, it's one of the reasons why I really enjoy a good Scotch or just in general Scotch is because there are so many layers of complexity that you can get from these things, and it's just interesting trying to pull them out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. One of the biggest things we talk, you'll listen to guys talk, and we're talking to experts who do this all the time. Is nose it and taste it and sip it, and I'm always in the mindset of do what's comfortable for you. What you find is going to give you the most enjoyment out of the whiskey.
All right.
Now there are some things that I think you should always do. You should always be snoozing your whiskey. Always. 100%, because most of the flavor you're going to get from this whiskey comes from the smell. If you can't smell, you're not tasting anything.
Yeah.
It's just simple science.
Science.
There's no lying. I'm not making up anything. It's just the truth. Now, we'll probably do a video on technique to tasting and stuff down the road. But for now, we just want to talk about the whiskey, and let you guys know what we get. But, I love the color on this one's really nice too. It's simple. It's got this nice amber, and we have we use the standard color scale off Whiskey Magazine's color scale. So we'll rank it off that. I think it's like 0 through 20 different color profiles. You'll see it on the infographic too. So we give our take. You may see something a little bit different.
Did you say you were getting banana on this at all?
So I didn't, but it's a Speyside, and we know like Glenlivet again. We were talking about it. They definitely have that characteristic. There might be banana in here, but I'm overwhelmed more so with I just get cereal. I get kind of sour. So when I say that, it's like the mashy smell you're gonna get from it. It's earthy.
Sour mash or no?
It's not it's not like that. So there's a difference when you taste like a rye bourbon, where that there's this mash bill's got some rye in it, it's sour. Not like that. It just has that earthy tone to it. And so when I think that, I think sour. That's just what hits me in the nose. And it's funny because I haven't even tasted it yet. I mean, I've had this plenty of times. So
yeah, I'm actually a little this thing because. And one of the things you'll kind of notice is if it's new to me, I kind of hang around the nose for a little while longer.
Yeah.
Because I'm hoping to find something new before I go into the flavor profile.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into it.
So I get a little bit of raisin on this. It's really light. I almost get it more on the nose than I do on the taste. But there's a spice here that's really interesting. This is for me. This is again why we do this. This is a pretty straightforward 18 from a really great distillery that we love, and I have had a ton of their collection, and what I find so interesting about this whiskey is, though it's done in a sherry cask, it is not a traditional sherry whiskey. It's just not. There are dried fruits. It's a little. I can taste that. I'm going to say it's maybe apple even. Or even darker fruits. It's just there. It's almost like you take dried fruits out of a bag. It's like what I'm tasting in my profile. But I get raisin, but I get this spice that is not normally present in a sherry whiskey.
Yeah.
For me, it's light. It's light.
I get the spice, which is so interesting with this one because I'm getting, maybe it's from the raisins, but I'm getting sweetness from it that I don't expect from an 18-year. A lot of times you're just going to get more of the layered, the dark fruits.
Yeah.
Interesting apple.
This is a really good intro again into whiskey, I think.
Yeah. And then price point. It's great.
I agree. And the reason I think the reason we go there is that if you can introduce people to a range of whiskeys that may be interesting for them, that can where you're not going to be off-putting to someone, where they try it and they go, oh my god, it's just too strong, or whatever. One of the things that and I'll drink whiskey just about anyway. I generally do, for my profile, I like it neat. I almost will not ever add water. But it's not always true. If you've got a cask strength whiskey, I like to open it up with water. But your standard profiles, I'm not going to go crazy with it because I actually like the higher ABV. I like the flavor I get from it. And so this one's 43%. So it's not your standard 40%.
It's more impressive to me the fact that it's 43%. 86 proof. Typically, I like my scotches 90, 95. Bourbons 110, 115.
Sure, and you're on the higher end, I think.
Probably, maybe
generally,
from the norm. But yeah, it's for this lower proof point. I feel like you are getting a lot for it, and it's got to be from the 18-year attributed to Glenfiddich.
Yeah,
great.
Well, you said it too, Donnie. Is the oak? So I still get the wood, and what's really neat here is the oak finishes in this as well. And so let's talk about finish for this one. So I'm going to be honest with you, I think this has a better finish. And the reason I'm going to say that is because I think it has a little bit of a longer finish. Mm-hmm. And you said the oily, and I said it's kind of middle of the ground for me. But it's got a longer finish than the Glenfiddich 18, right? So it's funny. Maturation does not indicate finish. It just doesn't always do it. A lot of the time, your higher ABV stuff will sit in your mouth a lot longer. There's just more oil in the actual, it's just an oily texture. But this one has got a nice simple finish, but the spice hits me, which keeps me interested. That's why I kind of like this one, because of that. And that's why I keep this That's why I keep this in stock, because it's one of those whiskeys that I will always go back to, Thursday night, Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a nice pour.
This is a perfect daily dram.
It's a great daily dram,
Just a little bit nightcap.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's
great.
It's not going to throw off any flavor profiles with any food or anything along those lines. And I'm finding similarities actually in the finish, because as much as I thought that the Balvenie was, oily, at least on that scale, it did finish a little bit drier, and I think the Glenfiddich does the same thing.
Yes,
it's a little bit drier throughout, but because it's drier throughout, without that oily texture, that's what makes it leaves the palate sooner, and that's where it kind of leaves your kind of on the back of the tongue. It just kind of dissipates, and I like that actually, because then you're ready for the next sip.
Yeah.
And, you're not waiting too long in between, because we do want to, if it's got a longer lingering finish, you're going to sit on it for a little while. So, your dram can last a little bit longer. That's great. But when you're looking to just, keep the sip going, then this is definitely something that I would put it on a daily. Miraculously, we somehow have pour here, some more Balvenie landed in our glass. I don't know. It's the Whiskey Fairy.
And it's not a neck pour.
It's not a neck pour.
This Balvenie is probably more than 14 years old.
It might be. I've had this for we'll just say a few years. Because I had it for a while.
They say
until I got introduced, to the real world through the Dram Bell Society on what whiskey can offer. So let's just say I've had it for a while.
So whiskey does not flavor in glass, just in general. It does not.
No.
Okay, but it doesn't lose its flavor. I still think it maintains what it's there. So you're this. I can tell you right now, from a fresh pour that I had at Chris's, same flavor profile. Okay. Nothing is different.
I'd be interested actually to take this one, and let's be honest, this is probably 4 years old. It has been open for 4 years.
About being 18.
Like I said, it's
maybe a 19.
It was probably sitting about here, not too long ago. Like I said, about 6 months ago when I got into it, because I started drinking it, and then it got it down to a halfway point, a little bit more. I would be curious to do a side-by-side on this one. If you guys are interested in that, let us know. We can do it. Not necessarily just a neck pour, but a newer bottle compared to something that's been sitting for a while. Because that's one of the things that I'm curious to discover is how long whiskey's kind of how it lasts. Because we know it doesn't age and add flavor profile. However, does the oxygenation lose, force you to lose flavor? Are you losing alcohol percentage from evaporation?
It may slightly. I mean, sure, you're going to lose evaporation, right? You're going to lose that natural age share.
Sweat,
Yeah, I mean, but that's because it's science. But behind that, but I don't think, for me, again, I don't think you lose that much. I will say this though: we were talking neck pour. I'm going to jump back into this. So the Glenfiddich or the Fiddy 18. We did. This is a fresh bottle. I just opened it last night. So we're talking. I mean, there was one pour off of this, and you can tell I didn't open it here for you guys. Yeah. So this bottle completely changes when you get past the neck. When you get down to here. For me, there's a sweeter finish. You get a little bit more of that sherry, which is fantastic. Again, it's one of those reasons why I love whiskey so much. Yeah. You go back and forth, and you go, I can't believe that this is the same whiskey I just had the other day. That's what's really cool about this. And sometimes, like Donny was talking about, I didn't mean to hijack his train of thought, was, you let a whiskey sit out for 10, 20 minutes, come back, and I can almost guarantee you there are different flavor profiles that come out of that whiskey. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. Even just general bottles. Like we'll do episodes about this for sure, but I revisited a Nectar Noir.
Nectar Noir.
Did not like it the first time. No reason. I just didn't like it.
Great bottle.
Revisited it probably 3 or 4 months ago.
Yep.
I mean, it other than the price point, it would be a great one for me to have daily. So one of the things we also like to do is kind of, once we've gone through the flavor profiles, is just do a quick comparison of the ones we're drinking. So we're going to go kind of a 1-to-1 and just see if we can pick out anything different, or just do a compare and contrast to it. And that's how the Whiskey Fairy just miraculously added it. No thanks to the miracle.
Is that a thing? Whiskey Fairy? I like it. Should we coin it?
There should be a Whiskey Fairy.
Yeah, hashtag Whiskey Fairy. We're going to put down here. I'll have John make a little infographic.
So now we need to find what the Whiskey Fairy would wear. And we need to figure out how that's
probably a kilt. Unless it's a woman fairy. Is it
It could be a kilt like made out of a design of like a whiskey barrel. So instead of the kilt, it's actually the whiskey barrel as the kilt. And I think that would work.
All right, Donnie. I like it. I think it's a great idea.
I don't know. I think it would work.
All right, done. Balvenie has a fantastic selection of whiskey. A fantastic selection.
I feel like I like their entire lineup, other than one I haven't tried, which is the
Peat Week. Yeah, I
I
love it though. Peat Week.
I might even like
fantastic.
it though too, because just Balvenie is offered.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
The 12-year double wood.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite ones. The 21.
The 21 is basically money. Yeah. Anyways,
it's
move on for that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's magic.
It's true, and that's what I wanted to just kind of throw out there is don't be turned off just because it's a name that you may not know. Hope like our channel, go on our Facebook, ask us questions. We love to answer that stuff. So we'll go out there and throw it out. What we've tried collectively as a group, we have tried and have a pretty extensive whiskey vocabulary. I think overall, we pool our resources together, and we'd love to give suggestions. And I do it now. When I walked in I walk to the liquor store and I see someone looking at scotches or bourbons, and I'll hey, what you looking for? It's a great conversation starter. And it's I think that people who are looking and are interested in knowing kind of want to talk about it and talk to someone who may have an idea. And we're not experts at all, and I don't claim to ever be an expert. But we've tried a lot, and we've done a lot of these tastings. So I'd like to be able to share that, and that's all. And I think Donnie's in the same. But I think most of our members are kind of in the same, the same world.
Yeah, we're whiskey curious.
Yeah, it's a great term. Hashtag whiskey curious.
Whiskey curious. I don't really want to be an expert, because an expert means you've kind of every piece of the puzzle. I want to constantly introduce myself to new things. Once I kind of learn more flavor profiles, I want to go to hopefully distilleries, learn the process a little bit more in depth, see it in person. There's so many things to be learned.
I agree.
And it's kind of a lifelong thing, like I said, I'm 6 months in, you're a year or so, 2 years maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we've been drinking. I've had whiskey before plenty, so I've like the introduction there. But for me, the Scotch was that build.
That was that point.
Yeah. It was about a year.
So I'm looking forward to see how our collection expands, how we perceive the flavors change over time as well. Like revisits are going to be really important for me. So yeah, I mean, feel free dislike our channel.
Yeah, you can dislike us.
Tell us why. I almost encourage. Just give us a dislike.
Fine.
But when you do give us a dislike, I want to know why.
Yeah, I want to know. Yeah, don't just say I don't like you. Give me a reason.
Yeah, I encourage it.
Constructive
criticism. We're all about it.
Yeah, sure, I could be.
I mean, if we can lead Whiskey Tube with the most dislikes, I'd be happy with that. We'll take it.
Right? It's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. No, we're not looking for that. But just in general, go and throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean.
So get back to these two. This is a hard one. If you were to, are we looking to say like what would you drink over the other? Because I don't want to go that route.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm not looking for a competition. But what I'm saying is, if you go with these side by side, we kind of made it clear that the Balvenie, which is on my left side here, you're right.
Yeah, it's this
one. For this one, we made it clear. Okay, we know it is a Scotch, but when you go side by side with a Glenfiddich, if you're going side by side, I could be convinced that this was not a Scotch.
Together.
When I'm kind of going side by side in comparison.
So I'll tell you why, or at least why I think.
Yeah.
So I think you get vanilla out of this one a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
This one you may be able to mistaken as a like a lighter bourbon. That low 40% or 45%. Something kind of really mid range in regards to a bourbon, because it does have you definitely get the American wood notes out of this one much more than you get out of this one.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's on the nose.
On the nose. 100%.
Once I try it,
yeah.
I think I'd call BS that it was anything other than
for
Scotch.
sure.
But
for sure.
Easily on the nose. I mean, I could be fooled easily. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, but not on the taste, not on the palate. There's no way.
But with that, not on the palate, but on the nose, I could definitely be convinced. If someone gave me a blind sample A, B, and said this is a bourbon and a Scotch, I nosed them. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sure. You're right.
Yeah.
Once I try them, but you know what? Whoever poured these is
lying to you.
Is false.
Yeah, they're false. They suck.
Yeah.
Both
of these, they have their merits. I really like them both.
Yeah. So I get what, actually funny enough to say, and I'm going to throw this out there. So I'm going to flip my glasses because this is technically the Balvenie, right? This is our Glenfiddich, so we know what we're drinking. So though this is a sherry cask, This one, the Balvenie, is a little sweeter. It's a little sweeter on the palate because this one I'm getting that spice come through. Yeah. You know, again, that's what's interesting. That's why I think that's why. And again, I think you get a little bit more of the wood out of this one too. So that longer maturation is going to give you just slightly more tannins pulled into whiskey. But again,
Balvenie's lighter too, right?
It is a little bit lighter. Yeah. It's not as heavy.
Lighter, so it's going to be easier to pull out the sweet notes.
I completely agree. Yeah. But this is for us. And this is for me, you know, I mean, and I'm speaking for us as a group. This is why we do this. This is why we really, really enjoy whiskey and why we really enjoy doing tastings because, you know, Donnie had some notes that I was like, no, I'm not getting that. But then after a few, you know, sips, I'm not searching for it because I don't want to fight. I don't want to hunt the flavor down. But then I can agree with where it came from, and then you can build off of that. Yep. You know, and so that's, and again, our introductions are going to be totally different. And everyone, so you're going to see, you know, we'll probably post them like boop, 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 all everyone else's video for their little snippet. And we're going to get a ton of different stuff, guys. You'll probably get some bourbons in there. I don't know if you're going to get any Irish whiskeys in there. We'll see what happens because we're going to record them all later on today. So who knows? But
I will say there's no dirty wash rag. Anyone
either
one of these?
No.
Just to be clear, so you know.
So here's what's funny is, and I'll throw this out there. So the Fitty 18, right? Because I get that cereal, I get that mash bill a little bit more pronounced. That's what reminds me of that dirty wash rag. When you say that, it reminds me of that's what I'm getting. It's getting that earthy, that like stale, almost stale, but it's not stale. So maybe that's
on the Fitty.
Okay. Yeah, on the Fitty. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's so light though.
We're searching for it.
I'm searching for it. Yeah, I'm hunting for it. So you know, if you're new into whiskey, you probably aren't going to get that. You know, you may get the sour. You know, you may go something's a little different here. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm pulling out of this one. Yeah. But anyways, you know, we it's funny because we want to try to associate flavors with, you know, memories or with, you know, things in our life that we can associate a flavor to, because it's really tough to pull a whiskey and go, yeah, there's Valencia orange and there's Sevilla orange in here and there's, you know, Meyer lemon. My palate is not that advanced to do that, but sure, I can pull out citrus.
Not yet.
That's true, not yet.
We're on the path.
But I can pull out citrus and I can tell you, yeah, sure, there's lemon or there's, you know, a sour, you know, note to this more so than like a sweeter orange flavor. And that's okay. Don't feel discouraged if you can't pull them out of that, you know, out of the nose or the palate on the first try. You know,
one of the things that you were kind of telling me about when we first started this group is when we're looking at the flavor wheels and we're saying, okay, with the Glenfiddich, you know, we're getting some dark fruits on there. That's fine to describe because you are getting some dark fruits in here. But the next level to that, as you try more and more and you get more exposed to different things, what dark fruit?
Yeah, what is it?
Are you getting a plum? Are you getting a cherry? What kind of cherry? And
yeah.
I know it seems odd, but over time you can say,
yeah,
a maraschino cherry.
Yeah. There's a difference.
You can look on the sweeter side or more on the bitter side. There's a lot to be explored, and it kind of comes to you with more exposure to different whiskeys and trying these things. I'd say at this point I've probably tried about maybe about 100 different whiskeys at this point, which is not a lot.
It's a good amount though.
100 if you think about it in 6 months.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, we're talking. It's a lot. It's a lot because we're talking about different. Profiles. We're not talking about like I've tried, you know, just Glenlivet a bunch of times. Yeah. It's like, no, I've tried all these different whiskeys. Yeah. From Scotch to bourbon to Irish whiskey to Japanese whiskey to you know, or a blend or an American blend. Shit, we've tried just about everything.
Yeah. So we have what, eight members now?
8 members.
8 members at this point. And one of the things is I mean, at one point maybe we'll post our text strings, but our group chat messages are a little out of control to where if you don't pay attention for an hour, you'll come back and there's 150 text messages.
You're lost. Yeah.
But what we do with that is anytime someone buys something new or they ask a question, we pour, you know, samples. They're all hand delivered legally.
Yep.
They're hand delivered.
Yep.
And we all get to explore what what the new purchases, and that's how we get to try so much. And that's what's great about the community, our group. Hopefully, just
we can expand
interaction with you guys. We want to learn. We want to know if if we like Balvenie 14. What if you like Balvenie 14? What do you suggest?
Yeah. Or what are you getting? Tell us what notes you pick. Maybe you're getting something completely different from us, and you know, we can have that discussion and talk about why we feel that way. So the idea is, you know, have an open mind, be willing to talk, be willing to discuss what you think and go from there. And that's the idea behind this. So, we for our general DBS stuff, luckily we live close enough to each other to where we can have these in-person events, and they're a lot of fun. Yeah, so selamat datang to Balvenie here in Glenfiddich.
The reason I got into whiskey was in college. One of my best friend's sisters was an upperclassman, and she had a good friend, and his drink of choice was Jack Daniels on the rocks. And I'd never had whiskey before, and I decided one time when we were all hanging out that I would give it a shot, and I was like, oh, I really like this. And so my buddies and I started drinking a lot of Jack on the rocks. And that led us wanting to branch out, and we liked it, but it didn't like blow my mind. But the first whiskeys that probably blew my mind were Elijah Craig 12-year small batch and Woodford Reserve. I remember drinking those, and at the time it felt like I was breaking the bank because I'm like, $25-$30 for whiskey maybe? I don't know. And I was like, broke college kid. But man, sometimes we'd pull together and get that, and like, it was just, that was like us treating ourselves, and that kind of opened the door. But yeah, ever since then, it's like kind of the rest is history. Then it's just, I started wanting to try basically anything I could, and I'm kind of still in that mode.
How's it going? I'm Danny, a proud member of the Dram Bell Society. Wanted to make a video just a little bit about my journey through this whiskey and scotch. To say the least, been a very cool adventure. Back in the day, I was the type of guy to get a shot glass and hit up some Jameson, to say the least. As I get older and realize the finer things of life, I've came to appreciate and love a nice whiskey. What kind of got me going is this Glenmorangie, La Santa. I remember just taking a nice dram of it, and it changed me. The nose, the finish, everything about this sherry cask is just been a true experience for me, and just really grateful to be able to surround myself with good people and try different scotch and whiskeys, and just enjoy the company, and enjoy just a nice whiskey and scotch, and a little sneeze from my beautiful daughter over there. So hope to see you guys soon, and thanks for having me a part of this, the Dram Bell Society. So super thankful. Peace.
Hi, my name's Chris, BBS. Those of you who know me, I'm neither full throttle or not at all. I like to get drunk and I drink fast, but I've learned to appreciate whiskey and scotch. What's got me was this Glenlivet Founders. Ended up drinking that with a good friend at a baby shower, and learned to appreciate the finer qualities of this and get the flavors. And
hey Internet, I'm Randall, also known as Labdar. I was told to answer the question, what got me into scotch or whiskey? Before I got into scotch, I was a Crown Royal guy, and it was cheap, and I would drink Crown and Coke as many as I can, just to get drunk. And then this group, the DBS Society, it got me into trying different scotches, and one bottle that got me, made a big impression, was the Macallan Double Cask. And what made a big impression is I was in Washington, D.C. with my friends, and I bought this bottle just to kind of open up their eyes to different whiskeys and my own. And we all downed it within probably 2 hours, and it was the best whiskey we ever had. So I knew that there was other scotch out there, so I wanted to explore that, and mainly I wanted to share it with others.
Hi, my name's Charles. I'm with DBS. Just wanted to share with you the first whiskey not the first whiskey I ever had, but the first whiskey that really made me think maybe there's a little more to this than just getting wasted. And that for me was the Glenlivet 12-year. Now, you can't find the Glenlivet 12-year anymore. It's my understanding that they switched over to the Double Oak. I'm assuming for marketing purposes. But I used to drink the hell out of some Glenlivet 12. and it really made me want to try some different whiskeys, try something a little more peated, something a little more mature, a little more complex. But it is definitely the first whiskey I ever had where I was like, okay, let's see what's going on here. So.
Hi there, my name's John. My introduction into whiskey was through a bottle of Lagavulin 16 that my wife got for me as a gift. I really liked it and made me want to try some other types of scotch. Cheers.